Greetings, lore captains. Ghost here, today talking about the new Rogue Trader patch 1.5. It dropped a few days ago at the moment I'm recording this. I had some real life things to get done, so I'm a little late to the party. The patch is gigantic in size, 23GB, and includes, besides a ton of fixes, some major changes, especially regarding some origins and classes for your characters. This will inevitably meet some resistance, bringing up the argument that this is a single-player game, so you don't really need to nerf the overpowered classes. If a player doesn't want to abuse them, they simply won't use them, and so on and so forth. Anyway, the nerfs are here, and they'll surely lead to some build changes. I'm not terribly deep into the theory crafting side. I prefer to make guides for beginners, so my character creation guide should still be relevant. Maybe I'll update the origin part to cover the ones that have been reworked. As always, I'm going to talk about the things I found relevant in the fixes and changes introduced with the patch, so these highlights are highly subjective. From the point of view of someone who has 600 hours in Rogue Trader through 7 playthroughs, there is a good chance other players will find those highlights interesting too. I'll briefly mention that some new character customization options have been added for your character's appearance, including armor and weapon colors or skins. For me, those are less relevant since this game is an isometric CRPG, and I never zoom in close enough to even notice these changes. But I understand that for some players, appearance is important too. Also, I don't have footage for everything mentioned, so expect some shameless use of B-rolls. There has already been an hotfix, and more are expected, given the sheer size of this patch. In case you're using mods that could break with the 1.5 patch, the latest 1.4 version is still available in the beta branch. If you're using Steam, the beta branch is available by right-clicking Rogue Trader in your library, selecting Properties, then Betas in the left column, and in the drop-down just select the 1.4 release. Anyway, without further ado, let's dive into it. As I said, there are a bajillion fixes. The floor in the crematorium on Footfall now breaks correctly, not soft-locking you anymore. Gleito no longer disappears when entering the Bloodspan Web Temple, locking the Lex Imperialis story, and the occasional freeze during burst shots should have been resolved. Another interesting bit is that quite a few of the epilogue slides have been fixed, so they should no longer contradict each other, especially regarding your companions' endings. Speaking of companions, a lot of fixes have been aimed at Irliet and Solomorn. Their romances and endings should now be more consistent. Many dialogue trees for all companions should also work more reliably, avoiding repetitions and abrupt endings. Environmental reactions and actors have been reviewed, so Solomorn and Kibella, the companions added with the DLCs, should have more things to say in certain parts of the base game. Many instances where a party member was talking to a non-present one should also be resolved. In their effort to improve the voice acting aspect, Owlcat re-recorded some voice lines for Lex Imperialis. It may seem minor, but it's a clear sign they're investing more in this area. In fact, Dark Heresy, their future CRPG, should be fully voice acted. Now, for the character build part, the amount of experience required for leveling has been increased to rebalance player power with the DLC content. I mentioned this when reviewing Lex Imperialis. A playthrough with both DLCs levels you up very fast, completely changing the power balance even from Act 3. I just wonder how it will work for players who don't have the DLCs. Companion starter builds have been reviewed to avoid talents that don't fit their roles. This is important for companions you meet later in the game, like Ulfar, for example. They're already at high level, and quite a few of their talents were questionable. This is a nice change. Now, for what I'm sure will enrage some people, the Bladedancer and Executioner have been nerfed. They were incredibly overpowered, there's no other way to say it. In particular, Death from Above and Death Walls from the Bladedancer now have stacking debuffs for every jump, specifically minus 20% dodge, minus 10% strength, and minus 10% perception, up to a maximum of minus 50%. This is big and feels quite punishing. A lot of Executioner damage over time abilities now encounter resistance checks done by their target, and Carnival of Misery has been redesigned to be a single target attack, with upgrades reworked as well. This feels more overdue than punishing, especially since one upgrade lets you ignore most of these limitations. I still think these changes won't be well received. The Astra Militarum Commander, Ministorum Priest, Navy Officer and Commissar origins have been completely redesigned to be on par with the newer and stronger ones. I imagine they mean the Arbitrators. They now align more with the iconic type of character they should be. For example, boosting others through faith or shooting one of your own to improve everyone else's performance. This is so true to being a commissar that I love it. The lore captain's familiars now change appearance and gain new abilities depending on the lore captain's conviction. They differ for Iconoclast, Dogmatic, and Heretic paths, and are unlocked by reaching the Fanatic tier tier in the respective conviction. 5 new talents have been added for exemplars with the Overseer archetype. A lot of small changes and fixes have been dedicated to the familiars too, but to be honest, I've never been a great fan of the Overseer archetype. I always thought the Servo Skull for support classes was the best option, while other second-tier archetypes were simply better at what the Overseer tried to do. We'll see how these modifications change things. New talents have been added for Plasma, Eldari and Drukhari weapons, the Weber and the Arc Rifle. Some are exclusive to Pascal, Irliet and Marajai, which makes thematic sense. The cost of the Arc Rifle shot has been reduced to 1 AP. Overheat stacks for Plasma weapons are now visible, and there are new dramatic ways to discharge this overheat. I'd love to see some new builds based on exotic weapons. Point of Curiosity now costs 2 AP instead of 1, and this hurts because I use it a lot with Cassia. I loved aggregating enemies and then blasting them with her gaze. Due to the massive rework of several origins and classes, you are now granted an additional free respec. Overpenetration now properly uses a single damage roll for all calculations, and critical hits are determined and calculated for each target. I find this interesting and makes more sense. Item distribution and availability have been completely reworked throughout most of the game. The reputation requirements for the Imperial Navy vendor have been modified, and the list of available ship items has been updated. Many new exotic weapons across Acts 2, 3 and 4 have been added. 12 new protocols have been added to the Familiars vendor in Act 4, requiring Zealot level in any conviction as mentioned before. Also, 3 new non-Astartes power armors have been added across different acts. There were very few in the entire game, so I'm very happy to see more of them. They've also rebalanced some existing armors and added new ones, along with new equipment and weapons for Drukhari, Eldari and Space Marines across the game. A lot of the rarest stuff has been given some love here. Moving from gameplay changes to visuals, we now have new NPC portraits for Abel, the Commissar, Melis and Clementia Werserian. I don't know why for those specific NPCs, but they're here now. You can also hide any equipment piece through character screen options. I know I said I don't care that much about appearance, but some gear was hideous, and I'm happy this option is present now. A number of cutscenes have been improved. This was already clear with Lex Imperialis, which had some very nice cutscenes while still using the game's engine. I'm happy to see Owlcat putting that skill and experience to use, improving the existing ones. New icons have been added to talents and abilities, and I'm always glad to have a quick visual reference when leveling up, something to help distinguish things in this ocean of options. Lastly, the colony management part of the game has been reworked too, rebalancing colony projects and rewards. The Bastion project on Gargonus no longer requires missionaries on Foulstone, which is very important because it was easy to miss and could lock you out of important developments later. Some colony projects will now award navigators insight. This is interesting because it allows smoother navigation between stellar systems and avoids repetition in random encounters, but in my last playthrough with Lex Imperialis, I already ended up with a ton of navigator insight. Are we going to see all green routes? I don't know. This pretty much ends my highlights for this massive patch. Let me know what you think in the comments, if you have an active playthrough right now and are upgrading to 1.5 or not. If you found this video helpful, remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel, it helps me a lot. Thank you so much for watching. Take care of yourself and I'll see you in the next video.